The Christian Conquest. Every god on trial but one. 1. The Conqueror's Dictionary. Every civilization reveals its moral character not by what it builds, but by what it lets live. Before crediting Christianity with the cathedral, the university, the hospital, and the charity it is routinely given credit for, ask a prior question. Was any of it Christianity's to invent in the first place? Plato founded the Academy in Athens in 387 BCE, and Aristotle founded the Lyceum in 335 BCE. Schools of philosophy, mathematics, rhetoric, and natural science that trained students for centuries, with a school still teaching under Plato's name when Justinian finally closed it in 529 CE, centuries before a single Christian founded Bologna or Paris. Egyptian temples ran scribal academies called houses of life, 1,000 years before the Nativity, and the Edwin Smith Papyrus, a surgical manual older in Christian chronology than Moses, diagnoses and treats trauma with an empirical method a modern physician would recognize on sight. Rome had a functioning body of civil law more than 7 centuries before Constantine. The 12 Tables, circa 450 BCE, predate the Gospels by roughly 500 years. And when the Christian emperor Justinian later codified Roman law, he did not invent it. He inherited it, reorganized it, and stamped a cross on the cover of someone else's centuries of jurisprudence. Greek cities practiced euergetism, wealthy citizens funding grain, baths, and public works as a civic duty, long before a Christian collection plate existed, while the healing sanctuaries of Asclepius provided organized medical and religious care centuries before Christ was born. None of this was Christian in origin. Every piece of it was already running in the civilizations Christianity went on to conquer. And Christianity's contribution was not to invent the university, the hospital, the law code, or the almshouse. It was to convert the people already staffing them and put a new sign over doors that had been open for centuries. A cathedral does not acquit the ruined temple underneath it, and a library does not unburn the one it replaced. The question is, what happens to the word Christian once Christianity has already burned the rival archives, hanged the rival priests, and inherited the rival populations? Because at that point, every pre-existing institution simply gets relabeled and refiled as a Christian achievement, whether or not Christian doctrine had anything to do with founding it. And the theft goes undetected because the only surviving witnesses are the ones who profited from it. Start with the word pagan itself. Latin paganus, a rural civilian, a hick, someone outside the army of Christ. No Roman worshipping Jupiter called himself a pagan. No Slav bowing before Svantovit. No Egyptian honoring Isis. No Celt approaching a sacred grove used this word for himself. Paganism was never one religion. It was a filing cabinet built by the winning side to gather radically different civilizations into a single defeated remainder, so their differences could disappear before anyone bothered examining what they actually believed. The victor did not merely occupy territory. It occupied the dictionary, and it has never given the dictionary back. Christianity became religion. Everyone else's religion became superstition. Christian sacred objects became relics. Everyone else's became idols fit for the fire. Christian expansion became evangelization. Everyone else's resistance became savagery. Name the crime whatever you like, it is still theft. And theft of the word is the theft that makes every other theft look justified. I do not hold that Zeus existed, that Odin answers prayers, or that the Aztec sun needed blood to keep rising. I hold every one of those claims false, on exactly the grounds I hold the virgin birth and bodily. Resurrection false. No verifiable evidence, unfalsifiable premises, origin stories that collapse the instant a real method is applied to them. Christianity applies to truth for itself, myth for the people it buried, using the identical category of evidence for both, and calling the difference faith, so no one has to say double standard out loud. Let every god stand trial, starting with the one still sitting on the bench pretending to be the judge. 2. From persecuted sect to police power. But a persecuted movement does not remain innocent forever merely because it once bled. And the turning point in this history was not Christianity's birth. It was the moment Christianity traded martyrdom for a magistrate's seal. Constantine's conversion in 312 CE and the Edict of Milan in 313 tied the church to the imperial Roman state for the first time. Within a single generation, imperial law began strangling rival cults. In 380, Theodosius I's Edict of Thessalonica made Nicene Christianity the empire's law. By 391, further decrees outlawed pagan sacrifice outright and ordered the temples shut. By 435, the law had stopped negotiating altogether. Theodosius II and Valentinian III ordered every remaining shrine torn down or purified by the planting of a cross on it, on pain of punishment for anyone who resisted. The old plurality did not vanish overnight, and any campaign to close every shrine on schedule empire-wide is more legend than fact. But the statute itself is not in dispute. It survives in the empire's own code as a government claiming ownership of which gods were allowed to keep a roof. Once theology had police power, it did not stop at the border of paganism. Arians, Donatists, Nestorians, Monophysites, Christians, every one of them, believers in the same Christ, learned that faith in Jesus guaranteed nothing once a rival faction held the emperor's ear. The Manichaean religion, born in 3rd century Mesopotamia, was hunted so effectively across the Mediterranean, its books burned so thoroughly by Christian authority, that the religion survived in the historical record mostly through the mouths of the men who destroyed it, until 20th century manuscript finds finally let it speak for itself again. They wrote its obituary and signed it as a neutral historian, and for 16 centuries, no one thought to check the byline. The lesson these purges teach is the sharpest one in this essay. Christianity's monopoly was never Christ over the old gods. It was one faction's Christ over every rival, pagan, Jewish, Manichaean, or the wrong flavor of Christian, with the palace, the courts, and the scriptoria all pointed the same direction. 3. Egypt, a civilization's mind switched off by decree. Egypt's ancestral religion had been developing continuously for over 3,000 years before a single Roman bishop called it superstition. Its temples held writing, ritual calendars, land archives, and unbroken priestly transmission stretching back to the pyramids, a longer, continuous intellectual tradition than Christianity has yet managed to survive. In 391 CE, Bishop Theophilus led the Christian destruction of Alexandria's Serapeum, a temple complex historically associated with a daughter library, and men who called the demolition worship reduced the sanctuary to rubble. In 415, a crowd loyal to Bishop Cyril dragged the philosopher and mathematician Hypatia from her chariot, stripped her, and killed her with broken pottery shards and roof tiles. Socrates Scholasticus, writing as a contemporary Christian, records that they then tore her body apart and burned the remains. A later, more hostile chronicle attributed to John of Nicaea adds that she was flayed while still alive. That detail belongs to Nicaea, and this essay keeps the two sources apart, rather than blur them into one account. The killing occurred inside Cyril's political struggle with the prefect Orestes. But political complexity does not erase the corpse of a leading intellectual murdered by a Christian mob aligned with a bishop whose power rivaled the state. In 529, Justinian shut down the academy in Athens, a school still teaching under Plato's name 9 centuries after he founded it, and its last philosophers found no refuge anywhere in Christian territory. They fled east, and a fire-worshipping Persian king gave them the sanctuary the Christian empire would not. In 537, Justinian's general Narses closed the temple of Isis at Philae, the last living shrine of the old Egyptian religion, ending 3,000 years of continuous worship by administrative fiat. No invading army, no siege, just a general's order and a door that never opened again. Hieroglyphic literacy went extinct within a few generations. No one refuted Isis with an argument. Her priesthood simply lost its funding, then its legal standing, then its right to exist, in that order, by design. Their descendants grew up learning about their own ancestors exclusively through the vocabulary of the people who destroyed them. Idolatry, demon worship, darkness before the light, because the alternative vocabulary had been burned along with the men who spoke it. Call this what it is, not conversion, but lobotomy performed on a civilization, and then a diploma issued in its name. 4. Syria, Palestine, and the persecution of everyone not currently in power. Roman Syria held the cults of Antioch, Palmyra, Heliopolis, Baalbek, and Haran, layered over millennia of Greek, Roman, and Aramean tradition. The 4th century orator Libanius, a non-Christian of Antioch, writing while the ash was still warm, composed Pro Templis to protest monks who were tearing down the countryside's rural temples, and with them, the livelihoods of everyone who depended on them. It is also nearly the only testimony we have from the losing side, which tells you everything about how thoroughly the winning side controlled what got copied for the next 1,000 years. At Apamea, the temple of Zeus fell under direct episcopal order. At Gaza, the great Marneon was demolished and a church built over its foundations under Bishop Porphyry. And Christian chroniclers did not hide this. They celebrated it in writing as a triumph worth commemorating. Rome, not Christianity, destroyed the Second Temple in 70 CE. But once the empire turned Christian, Jewish communities inherited new legal disabilities on top of the old wound, plus a theology of supersession that recast the church as Israel's rightful heir, while imperial law wavered between protecting synagogues and handing them over. The Samaritans fared far worse. 5th and 6th century revolts around Mount Gerizim were crushed with mass killing and enslavement, and Justinian's own legal code stripped Samaritans of basic civil standing, declaring their religion illicit by name. And inside the church, the identical machinery ground down fellow Christians. Exile, confiscated churches, burned books for anyone whose Christology lost the vote at Nicaea, Ephesus, or Chalcedon. Egypt's Coptic Church and Syria's non-Chalcedonian communities endured Byzantine persecution for the same reason the Samaritans did. They had rejected the imperial settlement, and rejecting the imperial settlement was treated as functionally identical to rejecting God himself. So the next time you hear the phrase Christian civilization deployed as a unified, coherent inheritance, ask which Christianity, defined by which council, enforced by which emperor's soldiers, because the phrase is doing a great deal of work to hide 1,000 years of Christians killing Christians over commas. Traditionally dated to the reign of Tiridates III and the mission of Gregory the Illuminator, Armenia is often celebrated as the first kingdom to adopt Christianity by royal decree. What the celebration omits is what came bundled with the decree: the destruction of ancestral sanctuaries and the confiscation of temple land, carried out by the same king being praised for his enlightenment. Armenia gained a magnificent literary culture in the bargain, built around its own alphabet, and lost, in the same stroke, the institutions through which its people had understood the world for centuries before that alphabet existed. 5. Saxony, the Baltic, and the Slavic world. Conversion by sword. North of the Alps, the coercion stops hiding behind legal language and picks up an axe. Charlemagne conquered Saxony over 3 decades of war, beginning in 772 CE. In 782, after another Saxon rebellion, Charlemagne reportedly ordered approximately 4,500 surrendered Saxons executed at Verdun during a conquest in which political submission and compulsory Christianization had become inseparable. He then codified the massacre into permanent law. The Capitulatio de Partibus Saxoniae ordered death for refusing baptism, death for cremating the dead by the old rite, death for practicing the old religion in secret while pretending conversion. This was policy written down with the penalties itemized like a tax code, because the men who wrote it expected obedience and got it, or corpses, and considered both outcomes acceptable. The Baltic paid for 4 more centuries what Saxony paid in 3 decades. The Northern Crusades, blessed by Rome from roughly 1147 onward, targeted the Wends, Livonians, Old Prussians, and Lithuanians, the last pagan peoples standing in Europe. The Teutonic conquest, colonization, forced conversion, and assimilation of the Old Prussians helped extinguish their religion, and by the early 18th century, the language that carried it. Lithuania held out longest of any European nation, remaining officially pagan until 1386, when Grand Duke Jogaila converted, not from conviction, but to buy the Polish crown with a marriage contract. The last pagan state in Europe did not fall to an argument. It fell to a dowry, backed by the standing threat of another crusade if the dowry proved insufficient. The Slavic temple of Svantovit at Arkona fell in 1168 to a Danish fleet. Bishop Absalon personally supervised the toppling of the idol, an act his own court celebrated as a triumph worth recording for posterity. Iceland shows the same machine running without the bloodshed, which somehow makes it more honest. In the year 1000, the Althing voted for Christianity under direct threat of invasion and trade embargo from Norway. Even the one case where the sword stayed sheathed was still a knife at the throat, an economic one, but a knife nonetheless. And no one has ever called an extortion payment a free conversion. Britain and Ireland took a gentler road: mission, monastic networks, and royal patronage more than conquest. And among the Slavs, Cyril and Methodius's liturgy sparked a genuine explosion of vernacular literacy rather than simple erasure. Pre-Christian Celtic, Anglo-Saxon, and early Slavic tradition left no institutional archive of its own. Nearly everything that survives of it was copied, selected, and edited by Christian scribes who had already decided which fragments of the Old World deserved preservation as quaint folklore and which deserved silence. A conquest needs no sword once the conquered no longer control the alphabet that remembers them for the next 1,000 years. Please visit www.reasonandrevolt.com for more information.